Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Dave Cunha,
Yep, I'm here.
Terry Ham,
Here.
Steve Mello, not yet. Sean McDonald.
Here.
Brian O'Hare,
Here.
Christopher O'Neill,
Here.
and Mary Waite, not yet. I didn't receive anything from Mary, so I assume she's here. Those are our voting members. Our non-voting members, we have Sean McGinnis,
I am here.
Anthony,
Present.
I see his name.
Sorry to interrupt.
Cody,
You have an appointment soon.
Cody has this. He has the same Serpent issue, so he's at Serpent.
oh, okay. And how about Melanie?
Melanie cannot make it tonight, so I've started a recording, so she'll
Okay.
get the pleasure of watching at her leisure.
Okay, so, Chris, just to let you know, Melanie is, the secretary of our group. She is the one that takes our minutes.
Melanie's last name is,
Perry,
Very.
and she works in Sean McGinnis's office.
okay.
So the first thing we're going to do, and Christopher, I don't know if you got to see, but are just going to review the minutes from our last meeting, which was April 14th.
I see the agenda from April 14th, but not the minutes, so I don't have those.
Okay,
I couldn't approve them anyway, I don't think.
correct. The only thing I do want to let the board know is that I have contacted Judy Lund, as discussed, for background on the Historical Commission, and she is in Maine until the end of this week, so she will contact me once she's back in town. So I don't have any information on that yet. Otherwise, I thought the minutes looked accurate. Any questions by anyone? No? All right, we'll go down and approve the minutes. Heidi
Motion
says
to
yes.
approve.
Oh, thank you. Motion to approve, Sean. Thank you. A second?
Second.
Second, Brock. Thank you. And now to approve the minutes, Heidi says yes. Brock,
Yes.
David Cunha,
Yes.
Terry Ham,
Yes.
Sean McDonald.
Yes.
I still don't see Steve Mello. Brian O'Hare,
I have to abstain. I was not there.
correct. Mary Waite, I still don't see her. And Chris, you'll abstain because you were not there. But the minutes do pass on that. So now we are going to start our review of Article 5. So Chris, this is actually a great place to start because we have not started this article. So you'll get to visit it with all of us.
Okay.
So the red line and suggestion, the edits have all been submitted to us by Anthony Savastano, and he has done that for each of the articles, and we will just start at the top and go down, see how far we can get on Article 5. So this whole article is on finances and fiscal procedures. Section 5.5-1 fiscal year looks fine. There's just a few little edits. 5-2. Again, when we put in local newspaper, it might serve us well, instead of mentioning it in every article again, to put something in the body of the charter talking about all the different ways that we might produce something. Because as we've discussed in the past, we're not just using print media anymore. Now, the question that Anthony has here, it says the summary shall specifically indicate any major variations from the current budget and the reasons for such changes. What does this mean? No definition or explanation. Who decides? So what I can tell you from the school department is that all the departments or school buildings and departments within submit an annual budget. And if we have a flatlined, budget, and we want to move things within categories, anything moved within 5%, we need to justify why we feel we need to boost any of those categories. So that would be, I would say, the major variations. But that is the information that I have from the school department. I don't know how fiscally, how the other departments, is there something, are all departments' budgets
Well,
looked at in that way?
this budget, this section 5.2 is strictly school committee budget only. It's not other town budgets.
Right, I realize that, Sean, but what I'm saying is, do all the other town budgets have to justify these major variations?
Yes,
Yes.
yeah, definitely.
So when Anthony is saying, what does this mean? There's no definition or explanation. Who decides? Should there be a standard for what a major variation is then for all the departments in the town?
That should be in fiscal practices and not in the charter. I mean, you can specifically just say indicate any variations from the current budget. But you wouldn't want to put anything, you could put something to the effect saying, if you have it in fiscal practices, then you can put it in, you can say something like, the summary shall specifically indicate any major variances according to the fiscal practices from the current budget and for the reasons for such changes. And that should, something similar to that should probably take care of that. That should be,
So are you saying that there is something else that talks about fiscal practices for the town?
yes. Yeah, town has fiscal guidelines.
Yeah, we have a number of financial policies that we abide by. And the department is aware that's part of these joint meetings. We have to review any changes to the financial policies. And I think generally, the school presents their budget and they present most the changes. So maybe you can even just take out major and, the summary shall specifically indicate any variations from the current budget. And that's generally how it's presented.
Can I ask a question that is more of a big picture question about bylaws versus charter versus policies? And as we're reading this, the same thoughts occurred to me that other people had, that this is in place someplace. When I looked at, for example, the finance committee's responsibilities, when you go to the bylaws, it's very specific about certain responsibilities. It's not so specific in the charter. Can somebody explain to me why we have to go through this? For example, this issue of where else is it written and be this specific in the bylaws? Is it required that it be repeated in the bylaws, repeated in the charter, repeated in the policies, etc.? And who's going to make sure that there's consistency between those documents, I guess, is my question.
Typically don't include in the bylaws something that's in the charter, just like we don't include anything in the charter or bylaws that's in the statute unless we want to specifically vary from that statute, because the statutes could change and then you're stuck with a bylaw or a charter that conflicts with the statutes. I'm not quite following you. Why would you repeat what's in the bylaws, what's in the charter? They serve different purposes.
If it's in the general laws of the Commonwealth, does it also have to be in the bylaws and also in the charter? That's my question. So if it's if we have to follow the law, do we also have to have it here?
No, we do just the opposite. If it's a statutory provision that we are not varying from through the whole rule amendment, then we don't reference it. Because if we reference it, if we copy what the statute says and the statute changes, then we got to go and amend the charter. Same thing with bylaws.
So
Uh,
to Sean's
Every
point-
time we do a bylaw review, Brian or I, we take out a lot of stuff because we say that's the statutory, it's not needed to be repeated here.
So to Sean's point, if it's a financial policy of the town of Dartmouth, does it have to be in the charter?
No, but it's easy to change a policy. It's not easy to change a charter. So if you want something etched in stone, you would leave it in the charter. If you want to easily change, you put in a policy is, I can change a policy tomorrow. Select board can vote on something tomorrow without any input.
Because it
So,
seems very specific. I'm not sure we want to be this specific and detailed in the charter. If, that's kind of my question.
yeah, I
I'm
don't
sure-
know. I don't think you would just want to say that you have to put every variation from the current budget. If you give the janitor a 5-cent raise, I don't think you need to put in the summary they gave the janitor a 5-cent raise. So I kind of like Heidi's, if you're gonna require something in there, I kind of like Heidi's approach. I was throwing that out there for discussion purposes. You can leave it as major variations and leave it up to whoever to interpret it, whoever's doing the summaries. It hasn't been an issue to date. It's just as I'm reading it, that's what jumped into my head is who makes these decisions, what's a major variation? The purpose of
O'Neill?
this, I think, in here is so that the public can know what changes are gonna be coming, so they can pay attention to it. So if you say the school committee could change their policy tomorrow at a meeting that they want to no longer, say you get a rogue school committee, they don't want to tell people what's going on. They don't want to advertise the major changes they're making, figuring it would go unnoticed is less likely to be challenged. That's just a possibility. So you may want to keep something in here requiring them to do some kind of summary. I just don't know that,
We may
No.
need that word, but I'm going to go, Chris O'Neill had his hand up. So Chris, you had a question or a thought?
I think I'm basically agreeing with Anthony on this one. I think it's my personal opinion. It's good to have, I don't know if the school committee actually has, say, a percentage. If there's a percentage of, say, 10% higher or 20% higher, some kind of trigger that they already include in their budget as in some type of summary, like an executive summary where it would just basically pull those out so people's attention is brought to it more specifically. And if they don't, then maybe we keep it in here and request that they do that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I'll just add, when we start to prepare for the budget year, there may be some scenarios where we ask departments in the school to evaluate, like this year, we asked everyone to do a 10% budget reduction scenario, but we might say, you can't max over a 1.5% budget increase. And then anything above that, you'd have to justify or explain. So that would be considered, anything above 1.5% would be a major variation, whereas in a typical year, we usually say 2.5%. So maybe you just leave it like this and let, whoever's interpreting it that year, make that determination.
Brian O'Hare?
Usually from what I could see, when the school committee does a budget, they usually put in how much a percentage it is over the previous year as a matter of course. And so then it's up to whoever's reviewing that budget to see if it's in line or whatever. So I don't know.
Well, I
but this
think,
isn't talking about what's in the budget. This is talking about what's in the summary, which is published in a newspaper.
Oh, okay.
which
I
I
have
do,
never read, I probably should, but I've never read any of these summaries. I don't even know if they're following this procedure. Do they do this?
well, this is,
Mary would be
that's
helpful.
another piece that when we come to the end of our charter is to figure out how do we enforce the charter. But I do think that the word major, because we don't want to say indicate any variation because there's always a variation.
Oh,
I think,
God, yeah.
I think if we leave major and say no more about it, at another time, maybe we'll feel that we have to have a specific.
Right, understanding you're paying per word if you're publishing this in the newspaper. As opposed to on the website, where you could have 10 pages and you can go into a lot more detail.
Yep.
On the newspaper, you're paying money.
But this goes back to one of the earlier articles we looked at is how do we advertise? And is it always the newspaper? And I think we talked about online. So we just want to make sure, I guess, we're being consistent when whatever we decide early on. I can't remember. I'm trying to remember if do we decide online, newspaper, media, or
I
Yeah.
think we
You should
said,
be
I think we
consistent
said, I think we said electronic media and.
I know we
public-
were putting a lot of onus into the town's website.
yeah, which is
That-
fine.
that
So we
should
can
have the
we should
information.
probably put it on
John
here.
McDonnell?
What about, I know Heidi, you had alluded to it. What, I know at the beginning of the charter, there's a list of definitions. And what if we had a definition in there that satisfies, should be published, instead of saying in a local newspaper, we just say locally. And then the definition of locally is website, newspaper, whatever. Give that the broad definition, and then that way, anytime that anything in the charter that says locally, it refers back to the definition.
Okay, but here,
That's a-
I generally agree with you. However, here we're talking about a public hearing, and as Chris knows, whenever you're doing public hearings, there's a legal requirement for notice, like you.
And
do
I
to
think we
the
keep in this
select board.
public hearing, but I do like Sean's idea that instead of local newspaper, it's publish. Of course, I didn't write
Locally.
that. Publish.
Right, but if, for instance, the planning board is having a public hearing on an application for a special permit, there's a legal requirement that they publish it in a.
In the
newspaper.
newspaper.
And-
Well,
and
I mean,
that
you
is
could put the
because you could
definition-
say, if you make it broad enough, then the school committee may want to just not have anybody show up and just put it in a small corner of their website.
I mean, you can put it, Anthony, I mean, this is where your sheepskin comes in handy. You put in the definition, as, and, or somewhat like as required by statute. And required by statute now fills the gaps in of a public hearing. And that's where it has to be published, in a paper for planning board, for school committee budget, for fire district budget, whatnot. I mean, you can add that little phrase and it should take care of that in the definition.
Okay, well, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go through the chart and see how many places it requires the local newspaper
Publication.
currently and see what it applies to. If it's only a couple of things, then, we'll look at it differently than if it's requiring a lot of different publications.
Yeah.
And then I can make some suggestions at that
So-
point.
Moving from that point, Anthony, I just want to talk about this last line. Nothing in this section shall exempt the school committee from the requirements of the open meeting law. That you added in.
Yes, because I want to make sure that, because you're talking about a public hearing, I want to make sure that otherwise they're complying with the open meeting law. Because it doesn't talk about, it talks about a publication in a local newspaper of a general summary. It doesn't talk about any of the notices.
So like the posting
Postings.
of the public.
In other words, they
hearing.
have to otherwise comply with the open meeting law.
Okay. And that moving into section B, submission to town administrator, the budget that is adopted by the school committee shall be submitted to the town administrator in sufficient time to enable the town administrator to consider the effect of the school department's request appropriation upon the total town operating budget that must be submitted under this article. I believe there is a timeline to get all of that information so that you have it for the annual town meeting.
Every year we create it, well, I shouldn't say we, Sean's office creates a calendar. We started this back with Dave because it was a disaster. before that.
So
Stuff
we
would
could
come in last
probably
minute all the
put,
time. So we created a procedure by which each year the select board's office creates a calendar. It has to be submitted to planning board by a certain date, public hearings for planning board by a certain date, to the town council by a certain date, to the FinCom by a certain date. But that's a moving target every year. Am I correct, Sean? Every year you put together a calendar?
but if the
Yeah,
meeting is
town
in
clerk and I put
June,
this together, yeah.
by the end of April, I mean, if you feel that we should put a time in, if we said by the end of April, is that enough time?
Usually get it earlier than that, don't you, Sean, or not?
Yeah, it's more fluid, but we usually meet with Jim Kiley early on. We have the department heads submit their budgets by usually in January,
Mhm.
their draft budgets. So we go over and then we usually talk with the school in February to get an idea of what they're looking at. So, we could set a date by the end of April but we usually meet before that. So that would kind of be the last date. But I guess we could go back historically too and look when the school committee votes on the budget. I think they usually vote the same time, but I don't have their calendar.
Well,
Yeah.
I know they voted
Actually, we would need
last
it by the
2
end
weeks
of March.
ago.
Yeah, so we would need to know their budget by the end of March at the latest. And that
Now,
gives-
would that be the final budget or just a,
Yeah, I mean, they wouldn't have to vote on it. It'd have to be pretty final. I mean, they wouldn't have to have taken their final vote, but Jim Kiley usually knows like where things are at. So,
yeah,
but we need to know what the school is looking at. This year, they were looking at 3.5% or a little bit more than that when we started. And so we need to kind of make sure our budget can, absorb that. So.
But as I said, they just took their vote. It was the first week in April, the first Monday in April.
yeah, generally that's the time.
Right, but
That's
then.
when they voted.
Yeah, I mean, Terry, I don't know if you remember when the school committee was before the FinCom. That was early on. That was probably,
They hold their hearing and then they vote the next school committee. So they start, March would be fair.
oh, no, I'm saying, when were they before the finance committee?
March, the middle of March.
Yeah, and they,
25th.
yeah, so
So-
by the end of March, you say,
Yeah.
they had a good idea of what the budget was. So we all knew.
They don't get the numbers from the Commonwealth until February, so it would be hard for them to do it in January, but they could certainly have it done by the end of March.
So do you think it, rather than saying insufficient time, we should say by the end of March?
I think you could say that.
Even though by the end of March, the school committee will not have taken their official vote? Or
Well, it doesn't say their final budget, does it?
The budget
Yes.
adopted by the school committee.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I think that does lead it to be the
Yeah.
one that they voted on.
Yeah, I mean, if it pushes them up, a week, then that shouldn't be a problem either. They should be taking, their budget hearings should be in March anyway. They should have the hearing, their first meeting in March, and then the second meeting in March should be the adoption of the final budget.
But you did this for years, Sean, right? So you.
Yes.
So we could say by the end of March. I think that would work.
And if they push back, I mean, if they need an extra week or two, then that's fine, because you're still more than 60 days away from town meeting.
Okay,
So say honor before March 31st.
That'd be good.
What drives it, Terry? Is it mostly the state budget? Is that usually what they're waiting for? Because they have a pretty good handle on it before then, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't think that anything in particular drives it, but they like to wait until they hear the Chapter 70 figures. They
Right.
generally have an idea of what it is, but they like to hear that directly from, it has to go through the governor's office, the House of Representatives, the Senate. They have to go through their process, and it usually takes a long time.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I mean, if you're waiting on the state for final figures, you're not, generally, sometimes you can wait until the fiscal year starts.
But the school
Yeah.
district usually knows what they're up against.
The school does, yeah.
They know what they're looking for in terms of staff and what they need to run the district in the following year. They're just waiting for that information. But the finance committee starts asking for that information in February, so end of March would be fair. I think they usually hold a hearing and they know what the ballpark is.
I think we're good. We'll move to 5.3. I will note that it says amended by town meeting 6/3/2014, approved by the voters April 7th, 2015. And then Anthony has redlined it beyond what was accepted then. So this is within the time, this is submission of budget and budget message. So this section is all other boards. So within the time period prior to the annual town meeting that is fixed by bylaw, the town administrator, after consultation with the Director of Budget and Finance and consistent with guidelines issued by the Select Board, shall submit to the Finance Committee a proposed operating budget for the ensuing fiscal year that is accompanied by a budget message and supporting documents, and shall post the same on the town webpage and in all areas of public notice, and shall provide copies of the same at all public buildings. Now, this does not say anything about, it just says within the period prior to the annual town meeting that is fixed. It does not say any dates.
No, it's fixed by bylaw, so you have to look at the bylaw.
Okay.
Why wouldn't the school committee say the same thing? Why are we picking a date for the school committee, but not referring to the bylaw?
Well, the school
I'm
committee.
not aware that there's a
budget-
bylaw. I'm sorry, Sean. Sorry, Sean.
No, I was just gonna say that, well, the school committees, that their date is to submit the budget to the town administrator to incorporate it into the larger budget. This is to post the larger budget for public viewing,
Okay.
the final budget.
And then this next piece, the budget message, which Anthony's saying to move to section 5.4, that was not in the original article. So I don't know if that was a piece that was voted in April of 2015.
Good question.
Oh, I'm sorry. The budget message of the town administrator shall include specifically, this section is, but it makes sense, sorry, to move it to 5.4, which is all about the budget message.
Correct.
So then in 5.4, do we need both of those paragraphs?
I'm not understanding why it's important to move it, I guess, other people.
Because the first one, because 5.3 is entitled submission of, and it gives a time period by which it should be submitted. 5.4 talks about the substance of the budget message. And this is part of what is talking about the substance of the budget message. So it should be in 5.4. It's not, this has nothing to do with the time period for the submission.
Yeah, it's both paragraphs. Because both are different.
Yeah,
Shouldn't the message be first and then the submission of the budget and the message be next?
Chicken and egg.
Yeah,
I also think that section 5.3 could just be submission of the budget. I think it's confusing when it says and budget message.
Yeah, you can do that.
Well, you're submitting the budget along with the budget message. It's required, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just a section 5.3 is the submission of the budget. Section 5.5-4 should be budget message.
Although 5.3 talks about the requirement that you submit both a budget and that is
And a message.
accompanied by a budget message.
Or you can call it submission of budget, and then the next one could be submission of budget message. Keep them
Well,
submission.
And if you want to really complicate matters, so
Yeah, of course, why not?
section 5.5 is the budget. So if you think about it just chronologically, it should be 5.5 should be first, because that's the budget, explains the budget. Then after that, it explains submission of, or the budget message, and then submission of the budget. I don't know if we
Right.
want to get into moving things around that much. So you talk about 5.5 is the budget, 5.6 is action on the budget. And then
See,
you could
that's
even do
defining
the
the
capital
chicken and
too. I'm sorry, what was that, Sean?
That's defining the chicken and egg,
Yeah,
which comes first.
I mean, I guess it really doesn't matter at the end of the day, but as long as everything's encompassed in the whole section.
As long as we don't have somebody with OCD, we'll be fine.
After this pandemic, I think there's gonna be an uptick in.
Oh, God, yeah.
OCD.
I think
Yes.
so too.
Starting to twitch already.
Has everyone read the content of those 3 paragraphs in the 2 and 5.3, 5-3, and the 1 and 5-4?
Yes.
Does anyone have a question about the content of those 3 paragraphs?
And let me explain to Chris what I did. Chris, what I tried to do was, in addition to fix what I thought was grammar issues and just trying to make it flow better, I addressed things to try to make them internally consistent. So if I found something in section 5 that was inconsistent with section 3, I would either point that out with a comment or I would make the proposed change. I didn't make any substantive changes. So there, as we go through this again, the second time around, well, you will see, I will make some comments occasionally, like, do we want to make this an elected versus an appointed board or things like that? But I didn't make those changes in the body. So
Mhm.
if you see something in here that you think, okay, well, I'd like to change this in the budget message, that's fine. That doesn't go, that certainly won't offend me. It won't go afoul to what I did. I
Mhm.
just tried to do grammar and substantive changes that were either inconsistent with statute, inconsistent with current practice, or internally inconsistent within the charter itself.
So the only question I have to Anthony is in the very last line of what is currently printed in section 5-4, where it reads, or the select person may reasonably require. I know you're replacing select men, but should it be select board?
Where
may
are you?
require?
Where are you now? Sorry.
It's actually on the next page, but it's the last sentence of 5-4 budget message. So it reads, summarizes the town's debt position and includes.
Yeah, the Board of Selectmen. Yep, yes.
Okay,
Well, I would say, yeah, I'll fix that. It's Board of Selectmen. Yes. Because you don't want an individual
right,
board member to be able, yes,
okay.
it would be by a vote of the board. Right. Do you agree with that, Sean?
Yes,
But you're gonna say select board, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Select board, not Board of Selectmen. Did I say that? Oh my God.
Yes, that's all
I
right.
was
We
thinking,
would
I was thinking
correct
of Swansea. Sorry, I was dealing with something with Swansea today. I keep telling them they gotta change that. I'm not used to it.
The only thing I'd say there also is if you're gonna say select board, then just make the period there. I don't think we have to say may reasonably require. Because that's their job, right? They can say that they want that, so.
So administrator or select board may require or deem desirable, period.
Yeah, that'd be fine too.
Yeah, you have to give an action because
We're going to move into section 5-5, which is the budget. And I just want to bring your attention to Anthony's comment that this sentence is essentially meaningless filler that is impossible to interpret, or alternately can be interpreted however one wants. So that you should see is highlighted on your copy. It says, in the presentation of the budget, the town administrator shall utilize modern concepts of fiscal presentation in order to furnish maximum information and the best financial control.
Well, maybe Sean can help me. I didn't know what the heck that meant.
I guess
If you think it means something, we can leave it in.
it means don't use an abacus. Sean, I don't know, you might know.
It's in the original charter in 2000.
I think it's just a
That-
matter of, presenting the information in a modern concept, i.e., in the past, they might have used an overhead projector, maybe now PowerPoint and a projector. Moving forward, some other means, just not paper. So I guess, it was pretty progressive to think like that. I suppose in one aspect, that there would be.
But I mean, pretty much
I
we're
don't- I have no idea what it means, honestly.
at town meeting.
Concepts of fiscal presentation. It's like somebody wanted to sound important, I guess.
They wanted to see graphs and charts, I think, if I had a guess.
Does anybody want it in there? I wouldn't even know how to enforce it. You came in with an overhead, Sean. I think somebody would be pretty hard pressed to say,
It's generally content is more important than
yes, exactly.
presentation.
Delete it. Up to you guys.
I certainly don't want to see an abacus.
I don't think Sean knows how to use it. Do you know how to use one? I wouldn't know how to use it.
No, it would be bad news if I did.
And the only thing that I can think of is when the first time I read that was, is this a control to make sure that, say, an income line is broken out by, is broken out properly, fees, penalties, taxes, whatever, rolls up into income. But underneath that, it says the proposed budget shall show in detail
Yeah,
all estimated income.
that
So,
makes sense. That's enforceable because you're gonna see what it says.
right. I don't know if that's what they were trying to go for or not.
I guess my thing is this budget is being presented to the town.
Everybody.
Town meeting.
So
yeah.
this is reviewed at select board meetings and then at town meeting.
Select board meeting, department head meetings, select board meetings, finance committee meetings, town meeting.
I guess I'm more concerned about detailed by town agency
All right, where is that?
in A and B.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's basically, that's showing how the Board of Health is doing their budget, how the Finance Committee is doing their budget, how the Planning Board is doing their budget. That's basically giving you each town department has to do their current operations and they have to show their budget.
And that is consolidated in the Schedule A that it's attached with the warrant. So when you see that, it includes revenues and expenditures by department, just all the revenues and all the expenditures kind of consolidated, and that's what the request is here.
So I'm wondering though, instead of saying town agency, do we say by department?
Well, town agencies a defined term in section 1, and it's defined as any multi-member body, any department, division, or office of the town, but
Right.
not including town meeting or school committee. And that's because it's used elsewhere where school committee does not apply.
So in this budget 5-5,
I mean, Sean, does the Historic Commission, does that have a budget?
No.
I'm just trying to think of a multi-member body that's not a department that might have a budget.
I'm
Well,
just
the
thinking-
historical commission used to. It got stripped out several years ago.
I mean,
Yeah.
it may be a multi-member body, for instance, that's a town agency, but it's not a town department.
I mean, there's the other schools that aren't Dartmouth schools that they present their budgets that we include in this budget.
So is town agency encompass enough?
It's all encompassing except for a town meeting and school committee. So it includes all multi-member bodies, any department, division, or office of the town. So by keeping town agency, you're making sure nothing falls through the cracks. If you just say department. Like I said, you might have a multi-member body that's not the ZBA. Does ZBA have a? ZBA is not
This-
a department, is it?
CPC.
I'm wondering, do we say town and agency? And should we be mentioning the school department by name?
Well, the school department's up in previous.
Right.
They're
School-
specifically,
separate.
yes, but they
School
have a
department's
specific,
treated separate from every other town
Right.
agency.
right.
Okay,
I would leave it as town agency because then you're also dealing with Greater Refuse Management District, you know, that the town is part of.
Mhm.
You know, it could be, in the future, it could be anything, you know, that the town is, you know, like Bristol County, Bristol Aggie, New Bedford Volk, you know, that type of thing. You know, also the Bristol County Pension, you know, so anything that the town is part of, I mean, it hasn't, any issues hasn't raised in the last 40 years that I know of. You know, of the departments doing it, and pretty much the way the budget is presented to town meeting, it's been expounded upon in the last 20 years as compared to what it was 20 years prior to that. Because it just used to be salaries, expenses. That was it. You know, I mean, and they saved a lot of paper way back when.
so does anyone else have any comments on 5-5, questions, concerns? Hearing none, let's move on to 5-6, action on the budget.
You know what, Heidi, I do have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Chris.
Generally, when the administrative office gets the different town agency budgets, how do you get those back up to you? I mean, are we all using the same software? All the same revisions?
Yeah, so generally, we have a financial software package called Munis, and most municipalities in the state use it. And it has all of the departmental budgets in there already by account, including the school. So really, they're just going in and, you know, it's got a budget module as part of it. So you have it's got a called next year budget entry, and you enter in your budget for the next year. Basically, it's got your numbers from last year, and you can update them for the next year. So it's very easy, and we use that to round up to create the reports to present.
Gotcha.
It's a nice system.
All right, let's move on to 5-6, action on the budget. So A is really all about what Finance Committee is doing. And then B is town meeting.
A is perfect because it basically says what it is.
Mhm.
This is what they do, and this is how they can do it to achieve it.
Do our reps on the FinCom agree?
Sure. I mean, my only question is it's repetitive to the bylaw. I'm not sure what the difference is. And in the bylaw, it says that the finance committee is required to look at every single article on the warrant, which was a focus of our discussion last week. It doesn't say that here. I don't know why not, but
This is the budget section of the charter, so it wouldn't talk, it would only talk about the budget, not, the bylaw states to review all the warrant articles, which include CPC or just, the planning articles, zoning, things like that.
Yeah, which is honestly is quite unusual because a lot of towns, the finance committee or the A&F, as they call them, advisory and finance, only address finance articles, but for some reason that's in the Dartmouth bylaws.
Well, for the most part, all articles eventually affect the financial picture of the town.
Zoning?
In some small way, yes. Yes.
All right, and under section B, action by town meeting.
I need this first in A.
Sorry.
Does it make sense? In open meetings, detailed expenditures that are proposed for each town agency and making each town agency shouldn't end there. May confer with representatives of each such agency in connection with this. What? With
Review.
reviews.
It's struck out.
No, review it.
Review is there. What struck out is and consideration of the proposed operating budget.
Oh, that's towards, all right. No, he's talking about the
No,
sentence.
I'm on action on the budget.
Before that.
A.
He's talking about the first
That
sentence.
Where?
Oh,
Yeah. Middle part is a little jumbled.
in connection with this,
Oh, I don't mean,
do you see that, Anthony?
I think review.
it should be this review, yeah. In consideration was supposed to be struck out. Review, that was an error. So I'll reinsert review.
His magic marker went too far.
Exactly.
Good catch.
So you've proven yourself worthy already, Chris.
Well, all right, that's it for me.
Good job.
You've earned your
That's
weed.
because- That's because he's an insurance guy.
The minutia.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
I mean, the last sentence of B, I don't know if you want to just consolidate that. I mean, most of the information's on the website, but you can say maybe copies of the report of the finance committee can be made available for distribution in any town, at town hall or any town office. If we say at any town office, then if
say
someone.
and
someone
accessible
in the
on the
water
website.
department-
This is before
Well, this-
websites.
Yeah.
You're right,
Right.
John. This was before websites.
I mean, this is the copies of the finance committee
Town meeting members.
report.
All right, I'll rewrite that sentence.
Yeah, because well, wait a minute, let me just, doesn't this kind of conflict with what is being done for town meeting where the articles have to be submitted to the town meeting members 14 days in advance? Because this says 7 days before the date of town meeting. And somewhere, I believe in the charter, you have to get the material to the town meeting members 14 days. in
But I
advance.
don't think this is a huge issue because this is like general people. So let me see about town meeting. Hang on.
Yeah, Terry, you guys put a report together well before 7 days before, right?
But town meeting procedures under notice of meetings, it's the notices that this was a discussion sent by mail at least 7 days before the meeting. So
Right,
people-
but that's sent by the clerk, and it'd be nice if the clerk didn't get something the day it has to go out. So I agree with you, Sean. We should put an earlier date in there.
Well, we have on our internal calendar that everything is due to the town clerk by May 7th, which would be almost, 3 weeks before. 1, 2, 3.
A
yeah,
month.
Over 3 weeks before town meeting.
Do we always meet at that? We never meet that deadline, do we?
too.
No, so I think all the boards and committees need to have everything submitted and approved prior to that. The select board votes. And actually, we changed that date. The select board, actually, it's the 14th. So the select board votes on the 10th. And it goes to get mailed out on the 14th by the clerk.
Right, and that's because we have town meeting on the 1st, so we always count, don't we always count backwards from town meeting?
Yeah,
When you put together that calendar, X weeks before, X weeks before.
right. So that's 2 weeks. 2 full weeks.
So you're saying that this year town meeting is Tuesday, June 1st?
First,
Yes.
Yep.
And has it been determined that we're going to be in person,
remote, Zoom,
remote?
Zoom,
And is that going to be an evening or that's typically our all
Day.
day,
that's.
All
the-
day.
all day?
I tried
Well,
pushing.
lately,
person
we've
on
been
the
out
date.
by noon time. I don't know. It's been a lot quicker lately.
Yeah.
Is
So,
it-
so we did, so we counted 4 weeks back, Sean, it looks like. 'Cause you're saying your calendar says May 4th? So that's 4 weeks prior.
No,
to-
14th.
Oh, May 14th, I'm sorry. I don't know how you.
May 14th is a Friday.
Right.
Well, I have warrant due to town clerk on the 12th, which is a Wednesday, and then they mail it out on Friday. So the select board is the last to vote on the warrant. So they would vote on it on the 10th. Then we would then sign it, and then we would submit it to the clerk, and then they would do the mailing on the 14th, which would be, and I think they're required 10 days. Is that what we said? So,
Yeah.
So do we think that,
So could we
I
say,
mean, the town meeting is a moving, it's just always the first Tuesday of the month.
mhm.
right, so that's where we should say
This is the
4
earliest.
weeks
it would be.
prior. Does that, Terry, does that give you guys enough time if you say 4 weeks prior to town meeting?
yeah, I mean, we have it done in plenty of time. The question I have is when does town meeting have to get it? 7 days or 14? When do they have to get it? 7 days before or 14
I
days?
think it's 10 days. That's why we mail it. That's why we have it
We have a
14.
little trouble. We're having a little trouble in the town with
Yeah.
posting deadlines and timelines. It would be good to get that down, Pat.
I mean, the clerk knows. We can check with her. So that's why we have
Yeah.
the calendar. So,
But yeah, we always get it in time. so.
So how about we say 4 weeks prior to town meeting? That gives it enough time for the clerk to include it in her package?
are you talking? What are you talking about? The finance committee recommendations or? just-
Yes, the finance committee recommendation.
Yeah, that's plenty of time. Sure.
And that's okay, Terry? That gives you guys enough time?
I'm just looking for.
Look, nobody's gonna come in. If you're 3 weeks and, 4 days ahead of time, nobody's gonna file a lawsuit.
Yeah. So the way
Oh,
that
yeah.
the way it's set up now is the clerk asks all handouts due to town clerk by May 7th, which is 1, 2, 3 weeks before the meeting. So, 3 weeks and a couple of days. So she wants all the handouts due because she needs to make copies of all of them for the town meeting reps. And I'll share this calendar. I'll email it today so you can kind of see how we go about things. And this also has the fall town meeting as well. It's not detailed, but it really kind of lays out when's the last day we need things. So May 20th is the last day to mail packets. So yeah, that's 10 days.
Well, I think this paragraph B,
I lost my spot.
Is-
What-
fine, because it says at least 7 days. I think we're safe. by
No,
saying-
but yeah, but we don't want to, that doesn't get it to the clerk in time.
No, but this is having it available to be viewed. And that's all we're talking about here. So internally, the date can be earlier, but all we're saying is shall be available at least 7 days before the date on which town meeting acts on said proposed operating budget.
I lost my space. What section is it?
We're in
Can't find
section
it.
5-6, part B.
All right, so you're talking about two different things. You're talking about the time that the clerk needs it and the time that you want to make it available to everybody for viewing.
Right.
But I think this section is only talking about the time everybody needs to look at it, because it's action by town meeting. So we're saying town meeting needs to get it at least 7 days before the date. What we're
But it-
saying is we're mailing it out 10 days before. It could take 3 days to get to some parts of the town, who knows?
So, yeah, but it says two things. It says it shall file a report, and then it says which shall be available. I'm not even sure what that means, be available. It should say shall file a report with the town clerk, not
Right.
later than 28 days prior to town meeting. All right,
Yes.
I don't see 28 days.
no, I'm saying. we're
Oh.
putting it
Talked about
28
that.
days. Just file a report with the town clerk. Right?
Thank you, Brian.
Yes.
Okay.
Which will will hence be made available to town meeting X number of days prior.
Yeah, I'll rewrite it and let you guys look at it.
The other thing in here is the distribution. Shall be made available for distribution.
Yeah, I'm gonna rewrite that whole paragraph. That's, like I said, from 2000, before we had websites. And if you look at what we did with the more recent changes earlier in the article, we shall post the same on the town webpage and in all areas of public notice
Mhm.
and provide copies of, so we can do that. But do we even do that anymore? Do we put it in all public buildings now, Sean? I mean, I know since COVID,
yeah.
we stopped doing a lot of things because public buildings aren't even open anymore.
I think we put it in the town hall and libraries. In the council on aging.
Yeah, I mean, a bathroom could be a public building, going back to section 5.3. You should,
But
you know,
The
I
Maritime
think,
Center.
the bathroom that you guys just put up by the bay there on Bridge Street, is that a public building?
oh,
It is.
We had asked early on if there was anything in the general laws that says these days where things have to be, is there language in the general laws that says things have to be posted here, there, and everywhere? It'd be good to know that, because then we
And
can
they
follow.
might differ depending on which general law and which department.
you're right, Terry.
You
It's
tell
not-
the towns.
At
If-
least on
if
a
people
connection on a website, someone can view it in their own language, and the documents on the website have the ability to be translated into those languages.
Right, but there are still some people who don't have computers, so we
Right.
still have to have it available somewhere.
Is there a list or is there a term for areas of posting or location, posting locations?
Different statutes have different things. I mean, we have statutes relating to fire districts that treat things differently from towns or state agencies, so that's one of the things we were talking about. Should we come up with our own standard? The problem is 10 years, the charter gets changed every 10 years. I mean, that's the way technology is going. There's probably stuff out there that you and I don't even anticipate that might be up and running in 5 years, you know,
Mhm.
with the current pace of technology.
So in saying that, so the only place that we'd have to change it is in the posting locations. We wouldn't
Right,
have
so
to go
near
through.
and near and dear to your predecessor's heart, you know, whenever we got into talking about newspapers, that
No
was,
print media.
yeah. That was a whole lengthy discussion that. we
Right.
never
The only reason I get the standard is for the classifieds. That's about.
So it does, I think, when we say this, less is more, not to name those specific spaces, but to say that it is posted and have
Yeah, here's the
as
problem is this
Sean
was,
McDonald suggested in the definitions, have something where a broader definition of about legal postings.
right, and this took place in the 20th century when, for 100 years, the standard was the newspaper.
Mm.
Right.
Things have changed so quickly
Mm-hmm.
that we don't know what the standard will be in 5 years, 10 years.
Could be on TikTok.
Dance
me out
video, you
if
gonna
so.
do a dance video, Sean?
Yeah.
Yeah, all budgets have to be submitted through interpretive dance.
Yeah.
All right, let's move into section 5-7, capital improvements program.
I think one item here that sticks out is, it says town administrator shall submit capital improvement program at least 150 days before the start of each fiscal year. And we generally don't do that.
Also, is it the director of finance that's submitting it?
No,
Or are you submitting it, Sean?
the town administrator through the director of finance. So,
Okay, because I know the packet that we get at town meeting, typically it's Greg that's written the
right,
summary of the CIP.
right.
Right,
But
but
we all meet together with the capital. But generally, I would say 60 days. Well, actually, no, before, so town meetings, so
So fiscal year is July 1st, correct?
Mhm.
yes. So I would go back even 60 days before the start of the fiscal year. That'd be like 30 days before town meeting. So that's
So it
probably,
would be May 1st,
yeah.
say? Why do you think 150 days? That's halfway through.
Yeah, I don't know
That's
why
the
that,
months.
midpoint.
yeah.
7 months in, I don't know. 60 days, Sean?
Yes.
Okay.
The only question I had in this section of CIP was when we went down, because I do know that there's a list of all capital improvements and it's kind of scoped out for the 5 years. And then I know in coordination, it's the decision is made to put forth these items from year 1 and maybe items from year 2 or 3. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's only taken from year 1.
Correct.
So when I go down to D, the estimated annual cost of operating and maintaining each facility and piece of major equipment that is involved in such improvements. This information shall be revised annually by the town administrator to account for the capital improvements that are still pending or are in process of being acquired, improved, or constructed.
Yeah, I can, that's a little, I mean, let's put it this way, year 1, you buy a new tow truck, not a tow truck, a dump truck. So does he have to put down year 2 that the tow truck, its operating cost for the tow truck was X number of dollars, and I that's just a
I mean,
little,
this is one of those things that I think it's stated here, but we're not following it.
oh, that's definitely not being followed.
Right, so
Because, I
then
mean-
either we say it needs to be followed or we eliminate it.
I think it should be eliminated, to be honest with you, because your estimated annual cost of operating and maintaining each facility is in the budget,
Right,
not in the capital
not in
improvement plan.
CIP.
The
And
only,
Not in
every
the CIP.
department or every town agency isn't asking for something in CIP.
Correct.
Well, I think they might be referring to, so if a department's asking for a dump truck, they would have to include the annual cost of operating and maintenance. Just so the CIP knows, okay, well, the truck's $5,000, but it's $100,000 a year in maintenance, or vice versa. So they want to know. And then how does that compare to what they're replacing? If they're replacing a vehicle or a dump truck that, is.
So how can we rewrite this to represent what you're talking about, Sean? Because I think when it talks about the estimated annual cost of operating and maintaining, I think the word I'm concerned about is each facility.
Yeah,
Well, look, a facility could be a capital improvement as well.
Right.
yeah.
Not, you're not just talking about vehicles. You could
Yeah.
want to build a new,
Pump house,
exactly. So you want to know not only how much it's going to cost to build that pump house, how much is it going to cost us to maintain it?
how about each facility or piece of major equipment?
One concern that I have, and the reason that I like us thinking about this, is this goes to planning for the future. And not so much the equipment, because I think it's true that when people are purchasing equipment, they have to look at the useful life. They have to figure out the cost of the equipment. But when we're planning for facilities, I don't think we went through such a process with the police department. We just knew that they were in portables and, went out and looked for. There's not really a planning process, and I'm interested in any language that we can keep in any of our bylaws or charters that talks about planning for the future. So
No, to Terry's point, that's particularly with buildings. There's an issue of operation and maintenance. So we talk about financing the construction of a building, but then there's the maintenance costs that go along with it, and specifically landscaping. So this is a big issue with all capital building projects, is the architects design these beautiful landscapes, but who maintains them?
and Heidi knows something about that, right?
Oh,
Heidi?
yes. Oh, yes.
Yes, so that should be included in any requests.
So also,
I think I agree with Terry. I think we should try to keep as much of this in as we can.
where can we, unless it's listed somewhere else, the things that are sent to CIP should be over, I think it's $10,000.
Yes,
Is that stated somewhere else? It's not stated here.
it's in the financial policies.
It's in financial
I think it's a
policy.
law also, isn't
It's
it?
probably a
State law, yeah.
statute too, yes.
So Terry, are you saying that we should leave in the difference in the annual cost to either maintain or run? So if you have a department that's in a building now, and we're going to build a new building, the operating cost for salaries and people and all that are just going to move over. But if it's a new building and we have to hire new people to put in that building,
I think it would be helpful for capital improvement to have an inventory list of the buildings owned by the town with the operating cost of those buildings. So I think about the old Southworth Library. We get requests from the finance committee every so often to do a redesign or architectural improvement. The town made a decision years ago that they wanted to sell it, and that was overridden by town meetings. So where is that written down though? When the people on the finance committee right now leave, and the next time that comes up, where is the guideline that says we don't want to improve this building? So yeah, I think to keep it simple, my suggestion would be to take out major equipment, because that's a given that when they buy equipment, they have to look at a state list. There's a certain procedure that's in place for that, but I've never seen what it costs to run town hall every year, what it's been the maintenance cost. There is stuff in capital improvement plan to address, like the windows that they did and the siding and all of that, but it's kind of after the fact. And the way that we budget for capital is tricky because we don't have a reserve fund for capital. Whatever is left over in the spring or the fall, the capital improvement committee looks and sees their 5-year plan and says, what can we afford, and kind of pulls that in. So that's a very tricky way to budget for and plan for these big costs that we have. So I would be in favor of keeping that in. That's just my opinion from the finance committee end of things.
As I'm reading it, it is very awkwardly written. Again, when I made these changes, I tried not to do wholesale changes, but I would like an opportunity to rewrite that, particularly the first sentence, but both sentences, that paragraph D, to make it, to try to accomplish what Terry wants to do, but make it sound a little better. I don't like it. I don't like that is involved. I don't like the word involved.
Mm-hmm.
I think I could write it better than that.
I bet you can.
We'll try.
Challenge accepted by Anthony.
Use that sheepskin.
I will probably ask Sean's assistance in this because I don't get involved with the capital improvement stuff, but I think we could come up with better language.
Yeah, we can.
Wow, we're done early. That's
I
never happened
am
before.
in shock and awe.
That has never
Perhaps
happened
it's
before. It
because
must be
everyone's
Chris's
so present.
involvement, you know? Chris, you're,
Oh,
We go
motion to
like an
take
hour.
up Articles
You're a
6
good
through 12.
talisman for us. We haven't ever gotten through one article in one meeting. That was our
we're early.
plan. But yeah, the definitions we did, but
Can
so
I ask a question for the next meeting? Have you
Yes,
guys
Carrie.
worked, you were gonna work on the language for the Director of Public Works? We were gonna look at that again, or are we gonna look at the end of the process? Remember
Me?
in the last meeting, you and
Yeah.
Sean Anthony and Sean were gonna work on language to rewrite the Board of Public Works?
Depends how successful I am in doing section 6 before the next meeting.
Okay,
yeah, I have 4-.
This is a lot of
draft
work
The
to go
entire
through.
thing.
Yeah, going through these is a lot of work, so
Yeah.
going back and trying to, because I'm looking at statutes, I'm looking at bylaws, I'm looking at a lot of different things. I'm not just making off the top of my head changes to these things as I go through them, so.
Now, also, that
Yeah.
being said, Anthony, we're going into the next, we're on the approaching May. And we have not received from you Article 6, which is general provisions. And then we have Article 7, which is transitional provisions.
Yep.
And we need to set our dates of our meetings in May.
Okay, what is it?
So Anthony, I'm asking, do you want us to keep going forward?
Are we tied to Wednesdays? I know you want to, but I've got a fire district annual meeting in 2 weeks, and I've got a soil board meeting in 3 weeks. So my next available Wednesday is the 26th. I can't do
Well-
Tuesdays either.
I can't do Tuesdays.
I can't either, so.
I know Mary Waite can't do Mondays because that's the night of a school committee.
Yeah.
It's every other, but
I mean, always you can certainly meet without me, but I think in the past you've said it's better if I'm there.
yeah, it
My
has,
next available Wednesday is the 26th.
which will be, the week before, days before town meeting. Is that going to make you crazy?
I think by then we're pretty much ready for town
Yeah,
meeting.
I know,
Once it's in Lynn's hands, I'm sorry, Lynn's no longer there. Once it's in
Sarah.
Sarah's hands, then we breathe a sigh of relief and.
Yeah, actually, it's the next 2 weeks that are really busy to get all the information together.
So May 5th and 12th are very busy for you,
Yes. For me.
for you. All right, Anthony, do you think you could get to us if we did not have another meeting until the 26th? You could get Article 6 to us?
Yeah, I'll get it to you the night of the 25th. No, just kidding. No, I'll get it to
Hey,
you.
you had the 5th to us very early.
I know, huh?
I mean, I think it would be great if
I had a spark of inspiration, that's why.
if we could do the 6th, Article 6, and at the subsequent meeting, Article 7, and then circle back to our holes. And by then we'd have maybe the information on the redraft of the Department of Public Works. And I will have met with Judy Lund to have some information on the Historic Commission.
I gotta tell you, there's one section of Article 6 that I need to spend some time with and talk to Sean about. It's terrible, 6.9, removals and suspensions. We've had litigation over that language. It's really
Oh, yeah.
bad.
Oh,
Really, we're gonna totally redo that, so.
okay.
It might be we get through everything except for that one section.
Okay.
I don't know yet. I don't.
Okay.
We'll talk about
We
that.
can always hold it if you want to, put just trim that one out and we go through all the other subsections of of Article 6.
Sure.
And then I know, Heidi, we talked in the past about the community participation program. So I did speak with Amherst and their community participation officers. And so I can give you a little update on that in the next meeting as well. They have a nice program to get more involvement, public involvement.
Oh, good. Also, I did take a look, Sean McGinnis had sent us the vacancy report back in January. And I know since we've had the election, I don't know if you have new numbers.
Oh, yeah. I'm trying to remember what report I sent. That was an old report when I sent it. So,
Yeah, I think it was pretty old, and it really will come down to looking again at where we are with precinct numbers and precinct members.
all right, you
'Cause
want
at
that
some
report?
point, we want to talk about that town meeting membership. So this was old information, and just first of all, precinct 3 isn't even in the list. We have 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. But like precinct 6 has 43 members, but only 25 seats were filled at that time.
You mean it has,
Two,
43
44 members,
seats.
only 28 seats filled at that time. I mean, I know we've talked many times about, town meeting members, so
I'll send you the updated one after the last election.
beautiful. So is the committee comfortable with waiting till our next meeting to be May 26th?
Yes.
Okay.
Is there anything that can be done in the meantime? So for example, one question that comes up is are there ways around having an empty precinct 3? That's never really been answered. And I know that they have to be, I did find out from the Secretary of State that the students have to be considered because they're considered residents during the 10 months they're here. But they clearly, short of a drive to get people registered, they're probably not going to register. They don't consider this their home. How can those seats be reapportioned, or I don't know what the answer to that is. And I don't know how to find that out. I tried to find it out from the Secretary of State and there was no answer. I know there are other college towns, Bridgewater, Franklin,
Amherst?
Amherst. I know
But
that
it's done by address.
council, say that again?
It's done by address. I don't know that we want to go be doing it dorm by dorm. And then what happens if kids move from dorm to dorm? Do the dorms have separate addresses?
No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm just suggesting if we have to have so many seats in a precinct 3, can they be divided up among the other precincts? I don't know. Bridgewater has a different form of government. So they have a council and they have an at-large position that they have somebody who can sit in. We don't have that form of government, so. I mean, I guess those are some of the questions that I come up with. I guess we can just do our own research.
Yeah, right now, when you think about how the census redrew some districts throughout the country, and states lost seats and gained seats, you almost want to see, is it possible to draw something similar in Dartmouth where these areas would be, their population numbers of these neighborhoods would dictate the number of town meeting members for their seat. But I think, again, we'd still have, if those students are using that address.
Yeah, I mean, I think,
There-
I
it's
don't
gonna be
know,
a-
but do they have separate addresses and is UMass Dartmouth going to share with us who lives in which dorm? I don't think they would do that.
Oh, they'd have to register, right?
Yeah.
No,
I'm wondering if they register to vote the year that there's going to be presidential elections and they're not going to be going home, if that's their desire to register.
the choice to register is
Dartmouth.
different. It's different than the census. What I found out from the Secretary of State is that they're considered residents because they're domiciled here for 10 months. So regardless of whether they register to vote, we have to consider them living here. And they become, so we can't do anything about that. They have to be part of our population. My question is, I know they were all put in precinct 3 for a reason. Does it make sense to divide them up? Can we even? I don't know the answer to that question. I know Brian had sent you some research, but I don't think he could find that answer either in the research that he did. There's got to be a way to manage it. Because even if the decision is to decrease the number of town meeting members, we still have precinct 3, which it will be an empty precinct.
But precinct 3, no matter how you deal with it, it's still going to have to encompass every resident and be compact and contiguous. So you can't carve out UMass and say except for these students. You're just going to have to. It's going to have to be more of an education piece to get them get the rest of precinct 3 engaged. But you can't carve them out. You can't forget that they ignore that they're there.
Aren't they carved out right now though, Brock? Isn't precinct 3 UMass Dartmouth?
I don't
And a
think
little bit more.
overwhelmingly
Bob
not
Carney
carried.
was from precinct 3, right? Sean,
Okay.
wasn't Bob Carney from precinct 3?
Little precinct 3, yeah, but he's now in his address, I believe, is now precinct 2.
Oh,
I
okay.
thought UMass Dartmouth was just precinct.
No,
I mean,
precinct,
if they had two sides of a street and some students live off campus, they may not be in precinct 3 if they live off campus. If they had two sides of a main street, divide the precinct down that center line, and you're throwing half of them into, but UMass Dartmouth isn't like that. You throw half of them in that case into one precinct and half in the other, then you have 2 problem precincts instead of 1 problem precinct.
So is there a precinct that that's full, that you can't have any more town meeting members from?
Not right now. They used
All
to.
right.
I think, yes, I was talking to Sarah. I think one of them is, and
It's usually 9. It used to be 10. 9 and
I think
10.
it's
Now
9.
it's 9. There's
So
always
Terry, is that what you're
one.
suggesting? Is that maybe there's an opportunity somehow to redesignate seats that aren't being used in one district into others that may be full?
That was my question, because earlier in the process here, Chris, there's been a suggestion that we reduce the number of town meeting members. Not everybody is on board with that, but in that conversation, the question was, the problem that we have is that we don't have enough involvement, and
yeah.
I think that's what the concern is.
So UMass Dartmouth is actually in all of precinct 3.
Yeah,
But there's also some of the dorms are listed in precinct 4 as well.
Correct. Citadel,
so 3
So-
is entirely UMass Dartmouth.
Yep.
correct.
Precinct 5 has Old Westport Road, but it looks like it's Old Westport Road up until the university.
That's where
Correct.
Connie was probably from, right?
Yeah.
Was it on Old Westport Road?
9? No, 9 was Paid Narrum.
No,
Uh,
Bob Connie, wasn't he on
Yeah.
Old Westport
Yeah.
Road?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in the
Old
beginning. of what-
Westport Road from number 13 to number 250 is in precinct 5.
Yeah.
I
So
could see if there were districts that were full, then.
no, see, the thing is that precincts are drawn by population,
Population.
Okay,
and that's how the precincts are drawn. From the population, then town meeting members are counted. You can't draw your precincts by town meeting members.
it's
You
from
have to do it by population first,
registered voter.
and then go from there. No, it's overall population.
By residents, not
voters.
voter registration.
So we have a few more.
You just have, Chris, you just have some areas where people are more active and.
Yeah.
Right.
So
UMass will be banging itself in the head trying to figure out how to get people to the table from there.
so
And you're really not going to
Take a
tackle UMass Dartmouth unless you really get some creative gerrymandering. Because the way the dorms are located, you're going to have to slice and dice that campus, and it's just not. I don't think it's feasible. You're going to have a black hole.
well, everybody and UMass, it's listed as 285 Old Westport Road.
Right.
And they have, there's some dorms, like it'll say Old Westport Road 4, then there's Old Westport Road CDW, which would be the Cedar Dell, an AS, you know, which must designate a dorm name, but the road, the number is all 285. And
Does
that's in the
anybody know
two
if there was
different
an
precincts.
impact on the census this year with the closure of the university? Have we seen any numbers back from the census yet, or is it too early in the process? Too
I don't
early?
think we've got that back yet, no.
Be interesting to see if there were students there, because the university was closed for most of the year.
Yeah, but
Um,
it's not, this is not the year for precinct gerrymandering.
Plus, I think that the census was done prior to COVID.
So what I have here is the street list as of January 1st, 2019. I don't have the one home with me from 2020. And we don't have the information on 2021. But
So this is to be continued. I wanted to let people know that the Mass Municipal Association held their conference recently, and there is some interesting information there from the town of Westford and the town of Lincoln that talks about how they do. For example, the town of Lincoln does a state of the town meeting before the regular town meeting. Town of Westford, which is much smaller than us, does the same thing. And I thought in the spirit of education and community engagement, there was some good ideas there. If anybody's interested, I can send them the PowerPoint.
that sounds like a job for Sean McGinnis.
Yeah.
And I
send it
wanted
along.
to tell Chris, these meetings were videotaped. If you want to have a binge watch, you can make a strong pot of coffee and
I've seen a few of them. Knock me right out.
Yeah, the Wanderers do a review of the warrant articles every year. And it's, I'll be honest with you, it's not gripping television.
Riveting.
No.
Again, perhaps if it could be done in interpretive dance.
Yeah.
All right, I am going to say that we have, our next meeting is set for May 26th. I'm going to do some more background work, Terry, with some of the information that you've shared tonight. And if I could ask someone to make a
Don't-
motion to end tonight's meeting.
Make a motion to,
Okay, I'll take
Adjourn.
Sean and Terry, you would second that?
Yeah.
Because you were kind of a simultaneous. So on a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting, Heidi Brooks, yes. Brock Cadero,
Yes.
Dave Cunha,
Yes.
Terry Ham,
Yes.
Sean McDonald,
yes.
Brian did leave us. Chris O'Neill
Yes.
and Mary Waite was not here this evening. Thank you all. We will see you May 26th, 6 p.m. And prior to that, Anthony will get us Article 6. And Melanie will get our minutes to us.
Okay.